Engage 8, the daily segment brought to you by the members of the Blitz Pod, where we go over 8 minutes of the hardest hitting news, hardest hitting topics in football on the day that we do it. So without further ado, let's dive into it. And the big story today, and if we have time, we'll drop some possible destinations for Elijah Moore, who just requested a trade. But the big news today is D-Hop makes his return tonight against the Saints. And so many people are so excited. They think that D-Hop, like prime D-Hop, is coming back. Yeah, I just saw that you tried to offer a trade for him for Kenneth Walker. And you know how I feel about D-Hop, man.
And we're gonna see what happens after tonight, because if he has like a 20-point, 1-point PPR league, 20-point performance, 100 yards, 5-6 catches and a touchdown, the talks are gonna be, is he a wide receiver one the rest of the year? Yeah. And in my opinion, it's kind of a risk in my mind, like me trading D-Hop to you for that, because it could blow up, but it could also not be. Like, D-Hop could end up flopping. You're right. Like that risk is there. We haven't seen him play in a game in a while when he was healthy too. That's the other big kicker here. But I think that with there not being much of a run game in Arizona and forcing Kyler Murray to throw, I know he's still going to use his legs, obviously, but now he's got his number one target back. I know him and Hollywood had a great connection, but D-Hop was always the number one. Hollywood was always going to play second fiddle as soon as D-Hop came back. And I think with him being healthy, yeah, he absolutely was. At least for another year, at least for this year. Maybe going into next year, it might change. The crown might be passed along. But for right now, I still think D-Hop's the number one wide receiver in this offense.
When you say that, like, I think of Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, like, right away. Like, I think now, like, especially considering Keenan's hamstring issues to start the year, like, Mike Williams is the number one guy in the LA Chargers offense. Like, not the most notable. Like, he's getting Keenan Allen's 30, D-Hop's 30. Hollywood is basically, I think he's a year younger than Mike Williams, actually. And
he might be, yeah.
So has had.
But the thing is,
go ahead.
Well, we might find out like toward the end of the season, but really and truly, we won't be able to really find out who that wide receiver one is in my mind until next year, because Hollywood's probably going to come back and like. He's not going to be 100% healthy, so we're not going to get a good grasp of what these two wide receivers are when they're both healthy, who is the number one.
Very true. I threw together some stats to argue my case against D-Hop being the same D-Hop that we know. Everybody's hyping up his return, but we tend to forget the last time that we really saw D-Hop and how bad the Arizona offense is right now in comparison to the last time that D-Hop played, man. So, since being traded to Arizona, in his first year, he was a dog. 115 catches, 1,400 yards, 6 touchdowns. Now, one thing, he has not scored double-digit touchdowns since 2018. He's only done it in 3 seasons out of 7, so I thought that was kind of interesting considering he's highly touchdown dependable now in fantasy football. He played 16 games in his debut year, played at least 15 in every season prior, and the Arizona offense in 2020 was clicking. They were 6th in yards per game, 10th in red zone scoring percentage, and why I mention that is because D-Hop has really made his bread and butter in the red zone these past couple years. Kyler Murray in 2020, he was on a different level. He had career highs in passing yards, which finished 13th, touchdowns, which finished 12th, and completed air yards, which finished 10th for that year. And then, last year, he gets banged up. He plays only 10 games. He had a hamstring for 3, an MCL tear for 7. I will say, as a 30-year-old receiver now, it was a grade 3 tear, which is the most severe. He had surgery on it in December, so you don't like to hear that about a 30-year-old wide receiver. And Keenan Allen has proven right now that hamstring injuries can certainly nag. In the games that he played last year, he had 42 catches, 572 yards, and 8 touchdowns. If you stretch those yards per game and catches per game over the rest of the season to create like a simulated season for D-Hop, in 17 games, he had 71 catches and 972 yards, which would have been tied for 35th in catches and 28th in yards among pass catchers.
And all that's fine, but you mentioned it. He had surgery in December. He knew he was going to be suspended the first 6 games of this year. He's had 10 months to recover. I'm not saying that he's going to come back to 25-year-old D-Hop, but I still think he's still going to be pretty damn good, and it's because of the volume that he's going to see, in my mind. Like, who else is he going to throw to? I mean, Rondell Moore's there, but then you got a pair of guys that average, I think, 70 years old between A.J. Green and Robbie Anderson? I mean, outside of also, I wanted to touch on this. It might be the oldest wide receiver grouping outside of Rondell Moore, like, in the entire league. Between D-Hop, A.J. Green, and Robbie Anderson, I mean, they're pushing 90 combined between those three guys for sure. They actually might be over 90, believe it or not. But yeah, I think that now that he's healthy and he's had all this time to rehab, and look, tonight I think he's going to blow up. You saw what Jamar Chase did against the Saints secondary without Marshawn Lattimore, and guess who's out again tonight? Marshawn Lattimore. I think this is a prime game for D-Hop to make his return, and I think you're going to see somewhere in the 5-6 catches, 80 yards, and probably get a touchdown as well.
I could see a huge game from D-Hop tonight. Without Marshawn Lattimore, Jamar Chase just torched him, as you mentioned. He's going to be pissed coming off a suspension. D-Hop goes off tonight. I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. And everybody's going to buy back in on D-Hop. But I'll leave you guys with this, man. He's 30 years old now. Only 11 wide receivers older than 30 years old have had 600 yards in a season after playing less than 12 games the previous year. Since 1980. And D-Hop, he had 572 yards, 8 touchdowns in 10 games last year. There's 11 games remaining this year, so he realistically should put up a similar stat line. No wide receiver older than 30 has had 8 touchdowns in a season after playing less than 12 games the previous year since 1945. Only 5 wide receivers have scored 6 touchdowns since 1980, and out of those 5, only 3 of those also surpassed 500 yards. That is not looking good for D-Hop as far as fantasy goes. And then this Arizona offense, in comparison to his productive days, so far in 2022, the Arizona offense is 16th in yards per game, 20th in red zone scoring percentage. And Kyler Murray so far, he's 12th in yards, tied for 17th in touchdowns, and he's holds the 17th spot for completed air yards. So all down from his year where D-Hop actually produced. So just temper.
When D-Hop was healthy. We're going to disagree here. We're going to disagree here.
Yeah, we will disagree, but D-Hop was also 2-3 years old or younger back then. I will say that. So if you want to say healthy, older, like those are probably the same thing. Wouldn't you agree? Almost.
But in my opinion, Kyler Murray's statistics are going to directly correlate with how when DeAndre Hopkins is on the field. The whole success of the Cardinals, in my mind, correlates with when DeAndre Hopkins is on the field. So now that he's on the field and he's healthy, I know he's a little bit older, but he is healthy now. Now that you have both of those coming together, I think your preseason ranked number 2 offense might be a little bit closer to that preseason ranking that you had him at.
Okay, fair enough. Throwing my words back in my face. I appreciate that. I mean, we'll see. We'll see tonight against a Marshawn Lattimore-less New Orleans Saints team. But it'll be a good game to watch. That does it for 8 minutes on Engage 8 for the day. We'll catch you guys tomorrow on another Daily